Tomorrow's dreams. Today was the end of Rebecca's and my relationship. The morning began like any other day. But since it was Saturday and I was off from work for the weekend, I slept in a little longer. That's because I had a grueling day at work the day before, meeting deadlines and working with an overbearing supervisor. I turned over onto my side and briefly opened my eyes to look at the gorgeous lady lying next to me as she was sleeping. My eyes wandered down from her lovely face, glaring at her beautiful breasts. Rebecca is a person who doesn't like to sleep with a bra or shirt on, just panties. She's a wonderful image to go to sleep and wake up to. Seconds later, after gazing at Rebecca, I fell back to sleep. About an hour or two later, I heard rambling and what appeared to be a zipper being zipped. When I awoke, I saw Rebecca packing her belongings. I jumped out of bed and said, "What's going on? What are you doing?"
What does it look like? You know exactly what I'm doing.
"It's only obvious that you're packing up your clothes, but why?"
You and I both know this relationship is not working out.
After I heard what Rebecca had said, it struck me hard, and I knew deep down she was right. Even though I deeply cared for Rebecca and I do love her, but I wasn't in love with her anymore, and I had to face the truth. Part of me was relieved that one of us dared to be honest. Instead of being adults and going our separate ways, we stayed together. Rebecca went on to say,
You are so naive and pathetic. I've never met a man like you before, and you need to get off that love at first sight, tears of a clown, old-ass Smokey Robinson several decades ago bullshit. Because women of today are not feeling that romantic crap, and neither am I, and I want a thug in my life.
"Now that's the most immature and stupidest thing I've ever heard."
So I don't care.
"Well, I tell you what, there's several of them standing right outside on the corner. Go and take your pick."
Yeah, a real bitch like me might just do that, and don't give me that look. And before you open your mouth, I already know what you're about to say. A lady shouldn't use foul language.
"No, not this time. You can call yourself all the bitches you want. It fits you."
So, you're calling me a bitch?
"No, not at all. You did. You called yourself a bitch, and I agree. And also with that comment you made about women of today not falling for that romantic bullshit. That's not true, and you don't speak for every woman. It's just you who doesn't like to be romanced or be treated like a lady, or to be given flowers or even compliments, and it's apparent that you don't love yourself." Rebecca raised her voice and became irate with me after the statement I made and said,
I do love myself. And who in the fuck are you to tell me I don't love myself, motherfucker?
Tears formed in her eyes as she held her head down and continued packing, and I said, "If you love yourself like you say you do, you wouldn't act that way. And I have never disrespected you or treated you unkindly like the way you treat me." Rebecca hunched her shoulders and said,
Well, you don't have to worry about that anymore, because I'll be out of your life as soon as I get finished packing.
I shook my head and said, "You know, to make it so bad, my friends always ask me, how can I love and waste my time being with an evil woman who treats me like shit?" And I could never answer that question. I guess life's a bitch being in love with one. There have been times I just didn't know what to do. I hate you one minute, and I love you to death the next, with no sign of rest. Rebecca interrupted me and said,
I don't give a fuck, and the hell with you and your friends and their opinions about me. They don't know me, and for you, you don't love me or care about me.
Rebecca broke down and started crying hysterically as she dropped to the floor, covering her face.
You don't love me, nor do you care about me.
I walked over to Rebecca and helped her up off the floor. I held her in my arms and said, "Look, Rebecca, you and I have been together for 3 years. So why wouldn't you think I don't love you, let alone care about you? I've shown you nothing but that. Granted that we didn't always have good times between us, but it wasn't all bad. I'm the one who should say that you don't love me or care for me, not you. You're the one that always have an attitude with me. And when I try to talk to you, you shut down and distance yourself from me, pushing me away. All I wanted between you and I was to be in a loving and caring relationship. That's all I wanted. Tell me what happened to you to make you change. Because you weren't acting like this at the beginning of our relationship. Why don't you just tell me what's going on with you?" Rebecca didn't say a word as I held her. She just continued crying as I tried to console her, and I said, "Listen, Rebecca, love cannot be one-sided. because the true feelings people have towards one another will eventually reveal themselves. You can't hide it and you can't run from it. And if it's not there in your heart, you have to be honest with yourself and don't deny it.
You don't know what I've been through, and you wouldn't understand.
Well, help me understand. Rebecca pushed me away and said,
I don't want to talk about it. I just want to finish packing and go.
Rebecca got the entire message twisted. Her attitude was, fuck it. She turned and looked at me, pointed her finger, and said,
Fuck you, you're living in a fantasy. I'll be a fucking fool if I fall for that bullshit you're trying to sell me. You're no different from any other man. Y'all always want something.
I looked at Rebecca, confused, and said, what the hell are you talking about? I'm simply trying to understand why you're behaving this way.
I told you I didn't want to talk about it. Now leave me alone.
All right, I'm going to give you some privacy and let you finish packing. I went into the kitchen and fixed myself a bowl of cereal while Rebecca was in the other room, and I could hear that she was still upset because of her crying. While I was sitting at the table, I began reflecting on our relationship, and I wasn't sad, angry, or heartbroken that it was over between us. I was more concerned about Rebecca and her well-being. I wanted to know what was going on with her and to see if there was anything I could do to help her, because I do care for her, and I wasn't going to pressure her into talking because she was already on edge. I really learned my lesson this time. One thing I will not be is shallow and base my attraction for a woman just on looks. I'm going to take my time and get to know her before I jump into a relationship. I know my mother would be happy to hear me say that. We have to be compatible, become friends, have chemistry, and be on the same page with one another. If we don't have that, we have nothing at all. Minutes later, Rebecca came out of the room with her bags, heading toward the front door. I approached her and said, do you want something to eat before you leave?
No, I just want to leave.
Rebecca continued walking toward the door. I gently grabbed Rebecca by the arm and said, wait a minute.
What do you want?
Can we just sit down and talk, and you can tell me what's going on?
Why don't you get it through your thick head? I already told you I didn't want to talk about it. Now let me go.
I released Rebecca's arm, and I took one of the bags she was carrying out of her hand and said, at least let me help you to your car, as my voice slightly crackled.
You might as well. You already took my bag from me.
I unlocked the door to let Rebecca out and to help her to her car. Sadness overwhelmed me because I knew it was finally over between us, and I might never see her again, and I still didn't know what was troubling her. As Rebecca was exiting through the door, she stopped, reached into her pocket, and said,
Oh, by the way, before I forget, here's the key to the apartment.
you can leave it on the end table, I replied. Rebecca slowly walked over to the end table and placed the keys down, and as she turned, we glanced at each other. I could see that she was crying, and she could see that tears formed in my eyes. I guess reality hit, and it was official. We were no longer a couple. Rebecca walked past me, holding her head down, and began walking down the stairs. I closed the door behind me and followed her. I thought I would not get emotional, but how could I not? I deeply cared for her, and it seemed like tears fell from my face with each step I took as we were walking down the stairs. I watched Rebecca exit the apartment building as I followed. We arrived at her car and began loading the bags into the trunk. Rebecca closed her trunk, and I said to her, I guess this is it. Rebecca looked at me with tears covering her face and ran up to me and wrapped her arms around me. I took Rebecca in my arms and hugged her firmly. Rebecca looked up at me and said,
I didn't mean to say those things I said to you, and I do love you. I just have a lot going on, and I don't wish to put you through any more problems.
so why don't you just tell me what's going on with you?
No, I can't.
Why not?
I just can't.
Well, can you at least tell me where you're going?
I'm going to my parents' home.
Is it okay if I call you to check up on you in a couple of days?
It's okay. Well, let me be on my way.
As Rebecca walked to the driver's side door of her car, I told her to take care of herself. She turned and looked at me and smiled and said,
You are a good man. Don't you ever change.
Thanks, I mumbled while fighting back my emotions. Rebecca got in her car and drove away. I went upstairs to my apartment and went into my room and laid across my bed, worrying and wondering about Rebecca and what was troubling her. I hope that when I call her in a couple of days, she will inform me about what she has bottled up inside. I tried to go back to sleep, tossing back and forth, trying to get comfortable. But after a while, I eventually dozed off to sleep, dreaming of better days. A couple of days later, I called Rebecca like I said I would to check on her, but I didn't get an answer. So I called back a few more times during the day, but no answer. The call went straight to her voicemail. I called the next day. Still no answer, and I called Rebecca the day after that. Still nothing. A couple of days later, I received a call around 10 p.m., so I picked up my phone, and when I saw who it was, I immediately answered it. The caller ID displayed Rebecca's name. I pushed the answer button on the phone and said, "Rebecca, I've been calling you for days now. Where have you been?" The voice on the other end said,
No, this is not Rebecca. This is her mother.
"Oh, hi, Mrs. Dupree. I thought you were Rebecca. Is everything all right with her?"
Yes, Rebecca is fine, and she's the reason I'm calling, and there's something I want to talk to you about.
When Mrs. Dupree informed me she needed to talk to me, the first thing that went across my mind was that Rebecca was pregnant. But if she was, why would she keep a secret like that from me? Mrs. Dupree asked me, "Do I have time to talk with her tomorrow?" Because she didn't want Rebecca to catch her talking to me on her phone. So we agreed to meet at the coffee shop near her home the following day. I arrived at the coffee shop and Mrs. Dupree was already there waiting for me. I walked over to the table where she was sitting, and as I approached her, I said, "Hi, Mrs. Dupree." She stood up, hugged me, and said,
How are you doing?
"Fine. And yourself?"
Well, not so good because of recent events.
said Mrs. Dupree as we sat down at the table. "Is everything okay with Rebecca?"
Yes and no. You already know she's the reason I called you here today, and I know you have been calling and texting her, and I've been trying to get her to return your calls. But of course, she wouldn't. And I know all about the way she was treating you and the real reason she left. She confided in me months ago about what was going on in your relationship, and I told her if she really loves you, like she says she does, she should be honest with you and tell you.
"Tell me what?" I replied. Mrs. Dupree took a deep breath and said,
When Rebecca was a little girl around the age of 7, something traumatized her. Well, I should say victimized.
"What do you mean by victimized?"
When Rebecca was a little girl, my husband and I allowed his younger brother to stay with us for a while, and that turned out to be 2 years. And within that time, we found out that he was molesting her.
When Mrs. Dupree informed me of that, I nearly fell back into my seat and said, "What?" out of disbelief, because I didn't expect her to tell me that. "I'm sorry to hear that, but why didn't she tell me? I wouldn't have judged her or looked at her any differently."
I know you wouldn't have. And my husband and I didn't have a clue that was going on, and it's our fault. We let our baby down.
Mrs. Dupree angrily pounded the table with her fist and said,
I allowed that monster to do that to her, to my baby.
I scooted my chair over to Mrs. Dupree and placed my arms around her shoulders to console her, and I said, "It's not your fault, Mrs. Dupree. You and Rebecca were the victims."
You're right, but I can't help but feel that way. And if it hadn't been for Rebecca, we would have never found out, because we used to have her uncle pick her up from school, and one day, when he came up there to get Rebecca, she refused to come out the classroom when school let out, and when her uncle didn't see her come out of the school with the rest of the kids, he went inside to see what was taking her so long to come out, and when he arrived to her classroom, Rebecca saw him, and she began crying, and she ran behind the teacher and grabbed and held on her leg and wouldn't let her go. Her teacher was trying to pull her off of her and to find out why she was behaving like that.
"That's because she was scared, and she didn't want to get molested by him again," I said with anger.
And that's why. So the teacher called down to the office, and the principal and the assistant principal, along with the gym teacher, ran down to the classroom to see what all the commotion was about. And by the time they arrived to the classroom, her uncle was gone. The school notified my husband and I, along with the police, about what happened.
"So what happened to the uncle?"
About 2 days later, the police caught him and arrested him. And when we went to court, the judge only gave him 17 years for raping and molesting my little girl.
"That's all they gave him for doing that to her?"
Yes, and what I'm about to say, I hope God forgives me, but I should have just taken matters into my own hands.
Mrs. Dupree balled her fist up out of anger. And I placed my hand upon hers and said, I'm glad you didn't, because you would have been absent from Rebecca's life when she needed you the most. Mrs. Dupree opened her fist and took my hand in both of hers and said,
Thank you for saying that. And you're right. The most important thing for me to have done is to be there for my daughter.
Mrs. Dupree smiled and thanked me again and went on to say,
But after that, Rebecca wasn't the same. She distanced herself from me and her dad, and she always kept the door to her room locked, and she didn't want to interact with her friends anymore. She completely shut down.
I wish she didn't have to go through that, or anyone for that matter.
I wish she didn't have to experience that either, but because of therapy and the grace of God, she was able to get through it.
At least therapy helped, and she had a great support system.
Yes, therapy did help, and her father and I were supporting her every step of the way, and you have seen how she was, and how full of life and happy she was, and also, when she met you, she was the happiest I had ever seen her.
I was happy to be with her, and I fell in love with her also. That's until she did a 360 on me and became a totally different person, being evil to me and getting angry and snapping at me for no reason, and I still was trying to make our relationship work, and I let her move in with me on top of that. But now I know why she was acting the way she did, and I don't hold any ill will or grudge against her.
I'm sorry you had to go through that, and she truly loves you too. But I know what really caused the sudden change in my daughter. About a year and a half to almost 2 years after you and Rebecca were together, and you might not remember this, but one afternoon, I came to pick up Rebecca to do some shopping with me, and it was on a weekend, and you were going to play basketball with your friends.
Yeah, I remember that day because Rebecca didn't come home that night and spent the entire weekend over at your house, and that's around the same time she changed on me.
That's correct, and that's because while Rebecca and I were out shopping, we ran into my brother-in-law.
You mean Rebecca's uncle, the man who molested her?
Yes, Rebecca and I stopped to look at a dress displayed in the store window we were walking past, and I told Rebecca, "You would look nice in that dress." Then I asked her, "Do you want to go in and check it out?" She didn't respond, so I thought she hadn't heard me. Then I turned to her and asked her again, "Do you want to go in the store and look at the dress?" She didn't say a word, so I asked her if she was okay, and she still didn't say anything. Rebecca just stood there frozen and had this frightened look on her face. So I placed my hand on her shoulder, nudged her, and asked her what was wrong. She wouldn't move or say anything. She just kept staring at the window. And then that's when I heard his voice say,
"Hey, Stacy. Hey, Rebecca."
So I immediately turned around, and it was exactly who I thought it was. Jimmy, the man who molested my child. Rebecca got behind me and started trembling, and she held my arm so tightly it felt like my arm was about to fall off.
That's because she saw his reflection in the window and became frightened and reacted the same way when she hid behind her teacher and held her by the leg when he came to pick her up from school that day.
You're right.
Mrs. Dupree took a drink of coffee to calm her nerves, and she continued with the story.
So, I said to him, "You dare to speak to us and to come near my daughter like nothing happened, especially after what you did to my child? How dare you?"
I know what I did, and I want to apologize.
"If you want to apologize, then kill yourself."
I just want to right my wrongs, Stacy. I'm sorry for what I did.
"Fuck you. And when in the hell did you get out of prison?"
I got out 3 weeks ago.
"And I'm about to make sure you go back, or back to hell where you came from." After I said that, Jimmy knew I wasn't trying to hear what he had to say, so he approached Rebecca and tried to apologize to her. And when he did that, she totally freaked out, while using me as a shield to avoid him, and screamed out.
No, don't touch me. Get away from me.
She completely broke down.
That's because she was having flashbacks.
That's true. And then Rebecca ended up falling to the ground, and she pulled me down along with her because she wouldn't release my arm because of her being so frightened. And I reached in my purse for my gun, but I forgot I left it locked in the glove box in my car. But by that time, workers from the store came out to see what all the commotion was about. and strangers on the street stopped to see what was going on. And one lady from the store informed us that the police were called, and of course, once Jimmy heard that, he took off running.
Well, that definitely explains the sudden change in her, but that doesn't explain why I wasn't called and how come no one told me, because I would have stopped what I was doing to come to where you all were.
I told Rebecca to call you right after the encounter with Jimmy, but she refused. She stated she didn't want you to find out what happened to her, and she didn't want you to get involved.
That's crazy. We were a couple, so why wouldn't I be involved? That makes no sense. And all that time since the encounter with her uncle, she was taking her frustrations and anger out on me, instead of being honest with me and letting me know what happened to her. I could have gotten her some help, got her back into therapy, and we would probably still be together.
All I can do is apologize to you. There were many of times I wanted to tell you, but I promised Rebecca I wouldn't, and she's an adult now, and I didn't want to interfere in her life, but I regret it. You have been like a son to me, and I know my daughter wasn't honest with you and treated you unfairly, and it wasn't your fault what happened to her, and she shouldn't have been taking her anger out on you, and I can honestly say that you have been nothing but good to my daughter, and I love you for that.
I love you too, Mrs. Dupree, and you and your husband have been kind to me as well.
Now I know my daughter has broken it off with you, and the reason is that she didn't want to hurt you anymore, but I would love to see you two back together again.
I don't know about that, Mrs. Dupree. I've been through too much with Rebecca. If things were different, and if I had known about her situation in the beginning, and if she didn't take her anger out on me like she did, I could see us being together. But my feelings towards your daughter have changed. Now, don't get me wrong. I do care for Rebecca, and I love her, but I'm no longer in love with her.
I understand.
Now I will still be there for her. I wouldn't turn my back on her, and I will be friends with her if that's what she wants. But I can't be in a relationship with her anymore.
I just thought I'd ask because I know Rebecca loves you and she regrets what she put you through.
I'm sorry about how things turned out between Rebecca and me, but the only thing I want right now is for Rebecca to focus on herself and get well. Mrs. Dupree smiled and said,
Well, I will not press the issue, but I would love to see you and Rebecca back together.
You never know, Mrs. Dupree, what the future may hold.
I'll keep my fingers crossed.
Well, Mrs. Dupree, I'm going to have to get on out of here. And you tell Mr. Dupree I said hi.
Yeah, I have to get going too, and I'll tell him what you said.
As we both stood up, we hugged each other and said our goodbyes and left the coffee shop. Later that evening, I received a call from Rebecca. She called to apologize to me for the way she had acted towards me. I told her I forgave her and that I didn't hold a grudge against her. Rebecca informed me that her mother had told her she had met with me earlier that day to explain the reason why she was acting the way she was. I asked her why she didn't feel like she could tell me what she had been through when she was a little girl. She stated she felt embarrassed and she didn't want me to see her as being damaged, nor did she want me to judge her, and she thought I wouldn't want to be with her. I told her I would never have done that to her, and she should have known me better than that because I had shown her nothing but care, respect, support, and love. She said she knew, but she couldn't help but think that, and that my opinion about her meant a lot. Rebecca and I talked on the phone for hours like we did when we first met, laughing and reminiscing about our relationship. We even talked about rekindling our relationship, but nothing was made official. Over the months, Rebecca and I stayed in contact with one another. We visited each other and even went on a few dates. I also accompanied her on a couple of her therapy sessions. Other than that, Rebecca and I just remained friends. After a while, over the months, Rebecca and I spoke and saw less of each other, and eventually, we stopped talking to each other altogether. I guess we got too busy with our personal lives. Months later, I received a promotion at my job, taking on more responsibilities, but compensated greatly, which also meant giving up more of my time. And for Rebecca, the last time I spoke to her, she was still going to therapy, working a part-time job, and also attending school. It's been almost a year since the last time Rebecca and I spoke. A year later, I left Chicago, and the company I worked for relocated to another state. Now I call Houston, Texas, my new home. I thought about reaching out to Rebecca before I left, but I didn't. And to this day, she has never left my mind, nor my heart. Tomorrow's Dreams, written by Guy E. Williams Jr.